Welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, let's talk about being in the room. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. I appreciate you joining me today. If you did not know, I will be your host today of the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. A couple things I want to talk about. One is I was thinking about a new name for the podcast, maybe something a little more descriptive in nature of what it does and what we talk about. Certainly, Leadership Secrets is kind of the motif that I'm looking for, and in the things that I bring you and the guests that I bring you. But on the top level, Leadership Secrets isn't very descriptive of what we actually talk about in general and specifically, I guess, to use those both ends of the spectrum. So if you have an idea, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you're like, well, Kale, your podcast is really about X, Y, and Z. Shoot me a comment. Let me know. Shoot a DM. Drop a comment on whatever platform that you're listening to this, and I'll get that. And then we can kind of have that discussion and maybe come up with something that's new and a little more descriptive in nature. Because I found, and this kind of makes sense when you think about it, if you think about it, is everyone has a different interpretation, a different understanding of what leadership is, because it's so situational dependent. Now, there are certain principles and certain ideas and certain ideologies that you can take across multiple different kinds of industries and situations. But the reality is leadership is so specific to, the reason that you're leading, the type of team that you're leading, the goals that you're going after, the mission you're trying to accomplish, right? Leadership in a military sense is different than leadership in a corporate sense, which is different than leadership in a small business sense, which is different than leadership on a community softball team sense, right? There's all kinds of different aspects of it. And like I said, while there are principles and things that translate across all those different industries, everyone has a different interpretation of what leadership means. And the point I'm trying to make is that I'm trying to discover and think of a way to be a little more descriptive of what the type of leadership that I'm talking about here, and the type of leadership that I'm assuming, if you're listening to this, that you are interested in. But I digress, as I usually do on my podcast. I just came back from a pretty amazing event. I flew down to Tampa for this past weekend, and I had the opportunity to be in the room with a whole bunch of different entrepreneurs, from all different kinds of industries, right? There were insurance people, there were e-commerce people, there were coaches, there were, I could go on and on and on without going into the specifics of all these different things. And it was about marketing, and it was about advertising and all these types of things, about how to basically get out of obscurity. Because what's the number one problem of any business out there, is getting out of obscurity. You have to get people and your name out there so they know that you even exist, to have you as an option to hire you, to buy your products and services. But it struck me, and the comments were made throughout, and they're made in a lot of these types of conferences and seminars and big events that you go to, is about getting in the room. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. Because there are so many different levels to this concept of, hey, I need to get in the room, because this is all about being known. This is all about getting yourself exposed to ideas, to peoples, to industries, to connections that you just otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to make. And if you don't put yourself in the room, then you're just not going to get that kind of access. Now, there are all kinds of different rooms that we can be talking about. It could be a podcast guest. It could be your local Chamber of Commerce networking event. It could be your local networking, BNI is a famous one, a networking type of organization that operates in your community, or something even smaller scale than that. It could be your industry has, some sort of association or a membership program that you can join and belong to and start networking throughout that. It could be annual conferences, seminars on the weekend, all kinds of different things that you could use to not only improve yourself, right? That should be your kind of number one goal, is like, okay, what am I learning from this that I can take and now make my own and use to improve my products, improve my business, improve myself, improve my mindset, my health, all those types of things. But it comes down to, once you're in that room, well, there's twofold to it. Let me step up, right? You got to get in the room, but then you have to take advantage of being in the room. You can't just kind of sit in the back, because if you sit in the back and never interact with anyone, never interact with the speakers, never interact with the staff of the people that are putting on the event, It's kind of like not being in the room, right? You can do the same thing by just listening to an audiobook if you're just going there to absorb information and never engage. So I just want to mention that real quickly, because that is a critical component of this that we're not going to go in too much about of the engagement part of it, but it is that first step of getting in the room. You must get in the room. And sometimes it costs money to get in the room because, hey, these events cost money to put on. Whoever's hosting the event, whoever's putting on, whatever personality or industry or organization that is doing that, right? They've got a rent, they've got electricity to pay, they've got pamphlets to print, they've got, staff, all the things that go into putting an event. Like this isn't new. This shouldn't be new. And if you still have that mindset of, I'm going up here and, oh, I can't believe they're charging me $57, or I can't believe they're charging me $5,000 to come to this event and blah, 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 blah. You need to go to these events, because if you're still having that mindset of somebody shouldn't be charging for the information that they're giving you, especially if it's a physical location and they're doing, maybe bringing in outside speakers that they have to pay for, you need to change that mindset and understand that, holy smokes, I'm paying for this information. This must be important just by virtue of them hiring people, them going and putting out their risk to book the venue, to cater the event, to order all the programs and all the jazz that goes along with that, hiring the whether, a hotel staff or a conference center staff to lay out all the chairs and put the projectors in. You have to understand that a lot of stuff goes into that. So please, 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 if that is you right now and you're like, I would never pay $300 to go to a conference or a seminar, like that's insane. It is so worth it. Now, granted, there are some that are better than others, but if you do your research, if you start talking to other people in your industry, like, hey, have you talked, have you been exposed to this guy? Listen to their podcasts, listen to their audiobooks, read their books, listen to see what they've got online. Like, is this somebody that I think that would be beneficial for me to invest the $300,000, $5,000, $25,000 to go to their event? And I would highly encourage you, more than likely, yes, because the ones that are kind of the not very good, they don't last very long. And they earn their reputation quickly of just not being beneficial. But the ones that are amazing, those are the ones that you're seeing all the time. Those are the ones that you're seeing the advertisements for, because they're investing a lot of money into getting themselves known, because they know what they have to offer you will help you and your business. So I wanted to ask you, are you getting in the room? If you need to start small, start small. Google your local county chamber of commerce, your local city council. What events are they having? They usually have one at least once a month, if not definitely once a quarter. And how can you start getting yourself out there? Just show up. Take that first step. I'm not saying you have to speak at the first one or get out there and meet everyone, but just show up and then start elevating that. Now, where's the national events you can go to? Where's the state events you can go to? Where are these masterminds that you can join that are focused on what you need right now? And go after that. Get in the room. And you will find, if you take advantage of it, right? You can't just go there and be a bump on the log. If you take advantage of that opportunity, you will see your world start to expand. Not only your influence and the connections that you make, but your mind and what is even possible. Imagine if you were magically able to attend, some event that had multiple billionaires at it. Do you think you would be better off from that, learning from their kind of how they think about things, how they approach life, how they approach their businesses? Yes, of course. So what makes you think that you can have that kind of mindset and that kind of gumption and that oomph in your business without ever being exposed to what it even looks like, right? And that's something that I've kind of struggled with. I come out of a, very middle-class family, go to school, get a job, work the job, and eventually retire. That was the business model for my life. And it wasn't until I started exposing myself, first through books, first through audiobooks, first through YouTube videos, that my world, in the form of how I perceive it and the how big or how small it was, started to expand. I'm going, wait a minute. There is so much more possible of me. I'm capable of so much more than what I always was. I don't want to use the word constrained, but what I was always limited by of just what I was exposed to. I never, a millionaire was a mythical creature when I was growing up, which is fine. But there are thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of millionaires. Now that is the same for you in your industry. Who can you be exposed to? Who can you get around, even just to kind of listen to them for a little bit, to kind of figure out how they tick and what makes them work, and what you can use to expand your thinking on your business and how you interact with your people. And if that's something we can help you with, please let me know. I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening to this podcast. Again, if you think of a name that would be kind of cool and catchy for this podcast in the future, I would certainly appreciate it. Dropping me a DM and letting me know. Likes, comments, subscribe, and shares are fantastic. Make sure you subscribe. Let your buddies know, let your coworkers know about this podcast, and we can all kind of help grow together. Have a fantastic afternoon, no matter where you're at in the world. Bye.